Hi, welcome to the third video on your guide to getting perfect espresso. In this video we're going to go through the setup of the machine, how to check the settings and how to adjust it if it needs adjusting. Number one is the temperature of the machine. This machine is electronically controlled. There are buttons down here for increasing or decreasing the temperature. On here we have a scale which lights up. It tells us there that the temperature is set at 120 degrees. There's also a pressure gauge down here, and that shows that it's about 1 bar steam pressure, which is what you're aiming at. These two are directly linked, so if I put the temperature up a bit, the pressure will go up a bit. If I put the temperature down a bit, the pressure will come down a bit. They are directly related. So this machine is fairly easy to control and to change just with these buttons here. If you do have a machine like this and want to change it, you have to hold the program button down for a number of seconds. The light at the top here will start to just all the rest of them will go out. This one light stays on, which is what it's set at, and I can then increase it or decrease it. But it was set on 120, which is where we want it, so I press the P button again and it'll just stay there. Cheaper machines and older machines will have a pressure control system which is a box like this. It's actually, if I take the lid off there, it's actually a pair of bellows pushing a big spring, and there's a big clunky contactor in there which turns the power on and off to the boiler. This sort is adjusted through a hole in the roof of the box. There's a plus and a minus on it, and there's a screwdriver goes in this device here and winds it in or out to adjust the temperature. You have to turn it quite a few times to actually make much of a difference. So if you do need to adjust that and you've got this sort of controller on there, you'll find it like that. There's usually a yellow cap on the top there which you take off, and you can see the adjuster inside there. Screw it in a bit and it lowers the temperature, wind it out a bit and it increases the temperature. But again, you're looking for about 1 bar on there maximum, or just on these, because there's a bit of a swing, the temperature control is not as accurate on as an electronic machine. You'll find that that'll creep up to say just above the 1, then it'll go down again before the heater cuts in again. But you're aiming to get it around about the 1 bar mark on there, and that's how you adjust the temperature on your espresso machine. Okay, the second part of the setup is the pressure that we're going to use to actually make the espresso coffee here. This is an espresso machine water pump, and that's capable of boosting it up to very high pressures. We're looking for 9 bar pressure. Normally your pressure gauge, which is located down here on this machine, would probably read 4 or 5 bar as a mains water pressure. We've got quite high water pressure here, and it's just over 7 in fact. But when we press to make a coffee, we need 9 bar pressure. So if I press a button here, that needle will flick up to about 9 bar. And when I stop, it'll go back down again. To adjust that on these pumps, there's actually a screw fitting on the side. There's a locking nut which needs unlocking, and then there's a screw which screws out or in. If you screw it out, the pressure goes down. Screw it in, the pressure goes up. And we'll just have a close-up look at that on the machine now. Okay, here we've taken the drip tray off the machine. We've also taken the back panel off here so you can see what's what. Here's the pump, there's the motor that drives it, quite a big powerful motor. And the adjuster here is on this side of the pump. The water's coming in here, being pumped around here, and then off through into the system in the machine. To adjust it, you need a 14mm spanner usually. Just loosen that nut on there, and then we can screw that in and out. You need to put a container under one of the groups, catch the water, but if we actually start it to run now, you can see the pressure on here is 9 bar. If I'm screwing that in, it'll go up. If I screw it out, it comes down again. But I'm then going to reset it back to 9 bar, which is about there, and that's where we want it. Do that nut up and just lock it and turn the machine off, and that's how you adjust the pressure. We often see on machines, especially old ones, that these have been leaking a bit. This can be a bit crusty with scale built up around it. If it does look in a bad way, it's better to get an engineer to have a look at it, because you may need to have a replacement pump. So if it's not behaving itself and it looks horrible, make sure you get an engineer to look at it. Okay, so we've checked the machine, we've got the right temperature, we've got the right pressure, and now we're going to start looking at the coffee. We need, first of all, the right amount of coffee to make the espresso. We're going to use a small set of digital scales here. If you've got them, all well and good. If you haven't, then there's another way of checking it, which I'll show you as we go through it. But this is the ideal way of doing it. A small set of scales, so we'll have a look at that now. Okay, this is a typical dosing chamber on a grinder. As you can see, there are 6 segments. The coffee is ground into the back segment and it dispenses out of the front segment. There's a plate there at the front which cuts off the coffee, so you just get a segment full of coffee delivered at any given time. Now these segments can be adjusted. That assembly in the middle will move up and down. So if you want to make it a smaller segment of coffee, you push it down further. A larger dose of coffee, it comes up. And this screw in the middle is adjustable, so you can reduce it or you can increase the amount of coffee that you get. Now you need a bit of care here, because if you go too far with that, the whole assembly can come out. It comes apart, starts moving around like that. But I'll just take it apart so you can see what's there. That's the bottom section of the assembly, and that's fixed to this arm here and rotates when you move it to dispense some coffee at the front there. This assembly here sits on top of it. That's the plate that's located at the front in a little slot, and this is the bit that moves around with the bottom part. There's a spring in the middle. If you do take it apart, make sure you don't lose that. So we're now just going to grind some coffee in there and see how much coffee we're dispensing. Okay, we've got some coffee ground now. I'm just going to use the lid off this just to catch the coffee and move it around a bit. A couple of times. Now we know these 2 chambers here are full now, so we'll just grind a little bit more up. So we now know that these 3 chambers are full. So I'm going to use the lid here. I'm going to put it on the scales. I will just move the grinder back a bit, give ourselves a bit more room. Okay. Turn our scales on. I'm using the lid on there, so I put the lid on and zero it. So we've got nothing on there. Set at 0. Yep. I'm going to take 3 doses of coffee out of here. 1, 2, 3. And there we've got 18.9 grams of coffee. What we're looking for is 7 or 8 grams per shot, so we're looking for 21 to 24 grams on there. So we'll pop that back in the grinder and we'll adjust the central bit to move it up. We'll just move that around again to make sure we've got 3 full chambers, which we have, and we'll try again. 1, 2, 3. There we have 22.2 grams, which is about right for what we need. Slap in the middle pretty much, but I will just check that again. So once more, 1, 2, 3. Oops. On the scales, and 21.9. So I'm quite happy with that. So that's the right quantity. I'm going to get between 7 and 8 grams every time I put a shot of coffee out of here. Okay, so the next thing to do is check the volume of espresso we're going to get from this ground coffee. Okay, so we've got our temperature set right, we've got our pressure set right, we've got the volume of coffee grounds we're going to use right. Now we're just going to look at the volume of the espresso. On your typical coffee machine you will have a row of buttons, 5 buttons in some combination. They usually show a single half cup, a single full cup, 2 half cups, 2 full cups, and then you have a free flow button which will run water forever and ever until you press it again. These are set up for the Italian market, so that would be a ristretto, single ristretto, that would be a single espresso, that would be a double ristretto, that would be a double espresso. In this country not many people will drink a ristretto, so it's common to program both the single buttons for a single shot of espresso and both the double ones for double shots of espresso. So we're going to get some coffee now from the grinder and we can check these buttons one at a time. So we've got the coffee in the group head, in the machine, and I'm going to check this button first, the double one. So we're looking for about 1 fluid ounce of coffee in each of the glasses. Another visual clue is that the coffee has all been extracted is the colour of the crema on the top. We'll just have a quick close-up look at that. Okay, if you look at the surface of the espresso coffee there, you'll see it's a nice browny colour, but there's a pale patch just appeared on this side. That's where the goodness, all the goodness was extracted from the coffee, and there's nothing else left that's any good there. So that's a clue as to when you should be stopping making your espresso and the right volume for it. The water that comes out of the coffee after this point is full of acids and alkalis, and you don't want it in your espresso. You can adjust these volumes. On this particular machine you hold this button down, which is the free flow button, hold it down all the time, and eventually that blue light will start flashing. What you do then is make a coffee one at a time with each of these buttons. So if you wanted to reprogram that button, say, you would take 2 shots of coffee, press it to start, let it run till you get to the right size, press it again to stop, and it'll remember that program. That light will then go out, and you can do the same thing for all the buttons. Some machines vary. You'd have to have a look at the instructions for your make and machine, but the majority of machines, holding that button down for that length of time, will get into program mode, and usually what you do on the right hand group will be copied over to the left hand group. So you only need to program one of them, one side. If you leave it long enough, that light will stop flashing and it'll pop itself out of program mode. Again, some machines you actually have to press the button again to get out of program mode, not on this machine. So you do need to have a manual for your machine to see how to do that. Having said that, it should have been set up correctly in the first place, but if you do need to do it, that's how you do it. Okay, so the last part of your system setup is the actual grind setting, the fineness or coarseness of the actual coffee. On these grinders, this is fairly easy. You move this lever to the left to make it finer, or to the right to make it coarser. As you make it finer, you'll be moving 2 grinding plates together by about a 50th of a millimetre. That can make up to about 5 seconds difference in the extraction time for your espresso. Again, this grinder is quite handy because you can't actually move that lever too far. It'll only go round from there to there. Other grinders have different methods, but they all have numbers on them, and they all have some method of releasing this ring here and moving it. On this grinder there's a little lever on the left hand side. If I press that down I can move that backwards and forwards. So what we need to do is to leave that in one particular setting, grind some coffee, make some espresso, and we need to time it. So we want to know how long it takes to make the espresso with a given grind. And we're looking for about a 22-second extraction time. So we'll take some coffees out of here, make some coffee, time it, and see how we get on. Okay, I've loaded the group handle up with some coffee, put it in the machine, place the glasses there. I've now got a stopwatch here, which is playing about. Right, there we go. And I'm going to press the button to start, at the same time start the stopwatch. So our pressure's right, our temperature's right, the volumes are all okay. I'm just going to see how long it takes to actually make that espresso before the machine shuts off again. So it's about 16 seconds, something like that. So the extraction there is a little bit quick. We need to make it a little bit slower. To make it a bit slower, we need to make the coffee slightly finer. So we're going to grind some coffee after adjusting the grinder, and we're just going to move it one notch at a time and see how we get on again. So we'll lose the coffee we've got in there and grind some more. So again, we've made sure we've got 2 sections of the dosing chamber full of coffee. We're just going to lose that. And we're going to start again. Just a visual clue, we were talking about the volume of coffee in there. Just a visual clue is that that's got a nice even finish to it when you take it out of the machine. If it's all pitted, you haven't got enough coffee in there. So if you haven't got any scales, you want enough coffee in there to stop it pitting and looking wet when you've made the coffee. So again, 2 doses of coffee, tamp it into the machine, and we're going to reset our timer. Stop, reset, and we're going to start again. Another visual clue that the coffee's coming out right is it should be a nice caramelly colour, and it should look like a couple of mouse's tails really as it comes out. We've got up to about 18 seconds there, so again it needs to be slightly finer. 2 doses again, tamp it down in the machine. Okay, so we've adjusted our grinder again. We're just going to test it again to see if the extraction time is correct. So start. And there we have those 2 nice caramelly coloured streams of coffee coming out. So we're just over 20 seconds there. I was a bit slow stopping it, which is within the 22 plus or minus 2 seconds. So I'm happy with that. So there is your perfect shot of espresso.